The question is that the motion that has been accorded priority as moved by the member for Baulkham Hills be agreed to. I call the member for Baulkham Hills.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I move that this House supports the government's commitment in the state budget to the North West Rail Link, with early construction work to start later this year. Mr Deputy Speaker, it's been many years for me waiting to stand here at this podium to talk about the need for a North West Rail Link, and certainly it has been a long wait for me to boast about how a coalition government would be commencing the construction of that piece of important infrastructure. Mr Deputy Speaker, I recall as a young man growing up in Western Sydney the need for transport, cheap, reliable, clean, safe transport, as one of the most fundamental parts of the economy of Western Sydney, particularly as those families who struggle to have more than one car on the road, or indeed for those families who require to commute to get to their workplace. I suppose, Mr Deputy Speaker, is on the back of that in the dying days of Neville Rand's premiership, Bob Carr came out to Western Sydney, to North Western Sydney, and announced with great pomp and ceremony in the Hills News that the North West was finally going to get a rail. It's ironic that that was actually 53 years after another Labor Premier in the form of Jack Lang actually had denied us that growth, that important piece of infrastructure. So as members of this House go around and talk about how indeed it's taken a decade for us to get to this spot, Mr Deputy Speaker, I'd like to put on the record that it is in fact a quarter of a century for us to get to the position that we are now, when we can indeed look forward to the further growth of the North West with the luxury of our own train station. Yesterday's budget commitment to the North West Rail Link was a momentous occasion. It was long been in the making for the people of North Western Sydney, and I'm horrified and surprised to see members from the opposite side who are so opposed to public transport. I don't know what they have about the North Western Sydney that makes them dislike us so much. Under their administration, we received no hospital, we received no courthouse, we received no courts. We have indeed only a few police stations. The only thing that we've got, Mr Deputy Speaker, plenty of, is indeed taxpayers. It's about time that we got bang for our buck. So after many broken promises from those opposite, yesterday's budget commitment was nothing but good news for North Western Sydney. We've been waiting for years for New South Wales to get serious about public transport in the North West. After so many meaningless promises from Labor, it began to seem as if the North West Rail Link would never become a reality, no matter how much practical sense it made. However, in the O'Farrell government, we have finally found a government that gets it. The North West is one of the fastest growing regions in the state, home to one of the New South Wales' most dynamic economies. It has made no sense whatsoever for the North West to be without a train line. The arguments in favour of the North West Rail Link are irrefutable. The entire state's economy has had to suffer as a result of the previous government's failure to deliver this essential piece of infrastructure. It is beyond belief that the Gillard government would not support this initiative in the North West, clear that they are placing political selfishness ahead of the needs of the people of New South Wales. Indeed, Mr Deputy Speaker, I suspect that's why the Labor member for Greenway, Michelle Rowland, is prepared to cross the floor and oppose her government's plans to ignore the need to fund the North Western Rail. The people, it's called survival. I acknowledge the interjection for the member for Drummoyne, whose political antenna is indeed most mature. The people of North Western Sydney are in desperation when it comes to this rail link. There are few other priorities in government that can compare. The members for Hawkesbury, Castle Hill, Riverstone and I have a very clear purpose in this House: to make sure this Parliament supports the people of North Western Sydney and deliver its rail link. It is essential that the people of our region know that this, the People's House, fully supports the government's commitment for this rail infrastructure. Having been dealt with so many cruel blows from the Labor Party at both the state and federal level, the people of my region need to know that this rail link is going to be built, come what may. It is an ironclad commitment. No level of interference from Julia Gillard will be able to stop the determination of those on this side of the House to get that rail link. This piece of infrastructure is so fundamental to the economic development of the state, it is a disgrace that it has taken this long for it to become a priority. The people of North Western Sydney know that we are serious about this rail link. Yesterday's budget commitment sees the rail link further enshrined in law, with funding up to $3.3 billion foreshadowed and provided. The rail link is moving from being a pipe dream in planning into an actual reality for the people of my region, and it will be available to those for years to come. The commitment of this government to the rail link should be commended, not only as a piece of good news for the North West, but also as a shining example that this government understands the importance of infrastructure planning and deliver. Call us the postman, Mr Deputy Speaker, because we deliver. Yesterday's budget development will be welcomed right across Sydney North West as a major move towards the North West rail link becoming a reality. Mr Deputy Speaker, I can assure you that after Julia Gillard made provided so much opposition to the North West rail link, my constituents have shown even more contempt for the Labor movement and the Labor Party, and for that reason, I commend this motion to the House.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is going to be good.